Great to have you with us on the Randy Carricker Show on STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. Glad to have you with us here on the old YouTube. Matthew Rocchio, Randy Carricker, on this day that the Cardinals officially announced the return of Yadier Molina.
What?
Yeah, he's coming home. He's coming home.
Wait. We're going to get there. Yeah, we're going to get
Okay, we just caused a problem. Okay, he's coming home. He's coming home.
I think we were off key enough that we're good.
That's good enough. Do you want the official announcement here with radio or TV voice?
Yes, let's. I guess hit me with it.
Okay, you got it. The St. Louis Cardinals announced today that Cardinals great and two-time World Series champion Yadier Molina is rejoining the team as a special assistant to President of Baseball Operations Chaim Bloom. Quote, "We are happy to welcome Yadi back to the Cardinals organization," stated Bloom. "He is an elite competitor, a consistent winner, and one of the greatest ever at his position, and we look forward to many contributions during his visits with us in his new role, both in and out of uniform. Yadi will provide input on our coaching program, will advise our staff on catching and game planning strategy, and will give me and our front office valuable perspective from his unique vantage point. Perhaps most important, he will help us nurture in our players the high standards, attention to detail, and championship mindset that are so critical to winning." Chaim Bloom making the announcement today, and you hearing it here on STL Sports Center.
David Henry, he's chiming in, watching us on Facebook right now. He's happy. Yadi's back. Woohoo! Wouldn't have been able to handle him working for another organization.
I'm intrigued by the Cardinals making this move, and I hope that Yadi is ready to do it and ready to work. And I hope this isn't one of those situations, Matthew, where it's just a celebrity coach kind of thing. I hope that he really gets his hands dirty with these catchers and with the other players. His level of competitiveness is unmatched. He is a superb competitor. And that's one of the things that young players need. And if they appreciate him, if they watched Yadier Molina play and watched all the winning that he did, and they can take any part of what he brings to the table, I would hope that it is his level of competitiveness. I hope that he can imbue these young Cardinals with that level of desire to win.
Kyler Mills says, "Let's get the Bloom Molina 26 shirts printed immediately."
Oh, I like this a lot. Yeah.
Kind of cutting out Marmol there, aren't we?
Well, we kind of are. Yeah, that's true. But he's not going to be here all the time. He's going to be here on occasion. Apparently, he is going to spend some time in spring training, which I find interesting. But because he's managing Puerto Rico in the World Baseball Classic this year, too. But I guess after the Classic is over, he can come over and spend some time with the Cardinals.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's not showing up till Ivan Herrera is.
Yeah. I'll ask you, what's the downside to this? I don't know that there is a downside. Ollie likes him. He probably can either find out whether he does or does not like the idea of being a major league manager, whether he likes the idea of showing up at 10 or 11 in the morning and not getting out until midnight. I think that you can find out a lot about yourself when you are put even in a part-time basis into that scenario that you desire in the future. Maybe he will determine, like Matt Holliday did when he was given the job as the bench coach, maybe he'll determine that, this really isn't for me. And if that's the case, so be it. And maybe he will like it so much and he'll say, yep, I do want to be a major league manager and I'm ready to pay my dues and do everything necessary to become a major league manager.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting part. I mean, obviously we're going to have to see, the commitment, to this role first, because obviously, we have the past, and the past tells us, how much of this is actually going to be, how active is this role going to be and things like that. Jeff Shanzer says that, in at least one air quote during his visits. I do wonder the potential benefit of having, because I know they have special instructors who help out during spring training and aren't with the team throughout the regular season, but I don't know about having a guy who just pops in and out, just having like a part-time coach in and out. How, does that mess with the consistency factor that I know they're trying to harbor right now?
Well, that's why I worry about just being a celebrity coach. I think there is that concern on the part of the Cardinals. And I would think that his access, because his time here will be limited. But yes, The Cardinals have gone out and hired all of these new coaches, including catching instructors, Ethan Goforth and Jamie Pogue, that they want to have a Cardinal way of catching. And so Yadier coming in, I think has to kind of be on the same page. Now, if he shares what made him great, and Benji and Jose Molina were raised in the same family, I think Yadi had such an incredible mind for the game. If he can get somebody to understand the game that he understands, I think it'll be a huge thing for the Cardinals. That being said, I think that he was such a unique baseball player, such a savant, that I don't know that you can teach somebody who doesn't have that innate knowledge of the sport to be as great as he was. Albert Pujols was the same way. There are some people that see the game differently than others, and that's what makes the greats the greats. Not to say that Ivan Herrera or Jimmy Crooks or Leonardo Bernal or Raynel Rodriguez, not to say that they can't be great, but will they ever have the baseball mind of a Yadier Molina? It's hard to imagine that all of that knowledge that he was able to accrue from his dad and from his mom and from his brothers, that somebody else would be able to think that way, because he grew up that way. When he got here as a 20-year-old in 2004, he already had an incredible amount of knowledge that nobody else could possibly have. Then he gets Tony La Russa, Dave Duncan, Mike Matheny, and that even adds to his level of knowledge. So if, to your point, he is here for, let's say he comes in for 5 series a year, and that's 15 days. Can those 15 days that Yadier Molina spends with young Cardinal catchers or any young Cardinal player, can he impart enough knowledge to make them great? It's hard to imagine that could happen, but sometimes one little thing can help a player. Back in the day when baseball was different, Barry Larkin was the shortstop for the Reds, and he was off to a bad start, and he was an okay hitter. And Whitey Herzog went to him one day and said, you should make this one little adjustment. And Larkin did, and it changed the trajectory of his career and turned him into a Hall of Famer. It was one thing, one day that Whitey said to Larkin, and it changed the way that his career unfolded. So there is the possibility that if you're a good teacher and you notice something about a player and you impart it and teach them something new, that you can help them become great.
How do you handicap this or your expectations for Yadi based on what we know for him as a player when it came to him being a teacher? Because I feel like in the in like the micro moments, he probably was a really good teacher. Like, oh, hey, look what just happened out here. Here's how we become a winning team by doing it better. But in the macro sense of, I'm the current guy who has this job, you're the guy behind me, maybe you're 22 years old, you got a little potential. Do we just think all of the, whatever it was, just the drive to be great that maybe held him back in those scenarios just is gone? Do we just think that was all there because he was a player and now maybe the edges are a little rounded off?
The way I understand it as a player, and I don't know if other players came to him, let's just give you some names: the Carson Kellys, the Andrew Kisners, the Eli Marreros, who was traded right before he got here, but obviously crossed paths with Yadi. I don't know if those guys came to Molina and asked for tips, but I also, from what I understand, don't believe that Yadi was a guy that went to young catchers when he had that rare day off, and he didn't like taking days off, and during the course of a game or during the course of studying or preparing, went to them and said, okay, here's how you do this. I think Yadi was so focused on doing his job every single day that he really wasn't taking it upon himself to nurture and teach young players. Now that he's not playing, maybe that'll be a little bit different, but I don't think that was something that he did as a player. So with that being the case, we don't really know how he is as a teacher. He's obviously a great leader by example. Again, the competitiveness and the desire and the work ethic that he showed beyond reproach. But in terms of being a teacher and saying, here's how you do it, I don't know if he has that. And I have told this Bob Gibson story before, but the Cardinals had a pitching coach named Joe Coleman under Joe Torre, just passed away, as a matter of fact. Joel Coleman did. And he would just go out to the mound, and pitchers didn't even tell you after the game. He'd go out to the mound for a mound visit and say, trust yourself. And that was it. Trust yourself. So basically he was saying, just throw what you want. I don't know. Just trust yourself. So that's what he told him. Well, one time I'm down near the bullpen. This was back in the day at the old Busch Stadium when the bullpen mound was actually on the field. It was on the right field line. And I'm out there.
Wasn't exactly Dave Duncan with the book, was he?
No, not quite. But I was out there in Torrey's last year here. He brought in Bob Gibson as his pitching coach, obviously one of the greatest of all time. And there's a young pitcher and Gibson and a few other guys standing down near the mound. And the pitcher says to Gibby, and I was down there. I think I was just kind of eavesdropping. And the pitcher says to Gibby, hey, how did you throw your slider? And so Gibby takes the ball. And he says, here's the grip. He said, yeah, but then how did you throw it? And Gibby says, man, you just throw it. So, not an awful lot of teaching there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because if you're that naturally gifted,
Man,
it's hard sometimes just to say, okay, here's the mechanics of it, because Gibby just did it, right? And he wasn't obviously. He was a guy. He was an attitude coach as much as anything else. But yeah, I'll never forget that day. A bright sunny day down the right field line. Man, you just throw it.
You mama jumping in with a similar kind of comment. It's not always the best thing to get the info from the great players themselves. Sometimes it's better to get the info from someone who studies the video and the movement of the great players.
Well, hey, Ted Williams was a major league manager for a few years, and his teams could never hit.
Yeah.
And nobody knew more about hitting than Ted Williams. But even then, there was just so much natural ability and so much knowledge. I think it was hard for players to assimilate that level of knowledge, because he was probably at that time, and this is late 60s, 1970-ish, he probably had in his mind what all the analytics people have now. Ted Williams did. Like he asked McGuire, he said, this is something that maybe 3 or 4 hitters in the history of baseball could relate to. But Williams asked him one time, he said, hey, when you foul a ball off, do you smell the smoke? And one time he and I know hitters are really good about this, but he and Tony Gwynn were talking about when you see a curveball, you see a red dot.
So
right?
Yeah, we've talked about this before. It's synesthesia.
Yeah.
It's one of the it's something that like I don't believe is real because I've never had it, but like when you hear people talk about it who have it, it blows your mind. And they're always savants at stuff.
Yeah, right.
The people who have synesthesia are always insanely good at something.
And so you've got two guys that are talking about things that Matthew Rocchio and I could never even relate to, seeing the red dot on a curveball.
It's so cool,
right?
Like you always hear about musicians. There's the ones that always blow my mind where like they see melodies and like color and they're like, well, obviously that melody worked because it's all yellow. And you're like, I'm sorry, what the hell did you just say to me? It's like, no, you don't see perfect melodies as all yellow? No,
right.
No one else does.
Yep. Josh Fromenton, the writing is on the wall. Put him in the dugout.
Like this is my thing.
He's going to be in the dugout a little bit.
But we know what Josh is. We know what Josh is saying, and I don't understand. I guess I do understand fans who just instinctively just go, "Oh, put the best player as the manager."
Well, he was
That's
my favorite
fun.
Player, so he's going to be a good manager because he was my favorite player.
Here's the thing: I grew up, and you know what? My favorite Cardinal player growing up did become a manager. Because I was a catcher growing up, I loved Mike Matheny. And then I saw Travis Ishikawa launch one 500 feet, and I said, I don't think he's a very good manager.
Well, you know what, though? You don't win 100 games in a season. You don't go to the NLCS in 12, 13, and 14 unless you're pretty good. I think having good players helps a lot when you're trying to win.
Yeah.
And when you lose good players, and we all talk, right? How many people blame Mo from 2015 on for the Cardinals' woes? So you can't blame, I guess you could blame both, but if your players aren't good enough, it's hard to win. And I think we can look at one move and say that. I always go back. Tony La Russa won 3 World Series, 1 with the A's, 2 with the Cardinals. And back in 98 or so, it might have been 98. Heathcliff Slocum was a Cardinal.
Love that name.
Heathcliff Slocum.
Both of them.
Game in San Francisco, and he lets Heathcliff Slocum pitch to Heathcliff, a right-hander. Not the greatest stuff in the world.
It's one of those names where, like, I'm surprised that any coach ever didn't hear his name and just go, I just don't think this is for you.
Yeah, right. No doubt. So anyway, Heathcliff is allowed to pitch to Barry Bonds in the ninth inning of a game in San
Jesus
Francisco. And, Barry Bonds does something to help the Giants win the game. And so on open line that night, I said, this one's on Tony. This is a La Russa game. And then I, because I had a relationship and I knew if Tony heard about it, he'd confront me about it anyway. So went up to him the next day and said, just want you to know that I blamed you for last night's loss because you had Heathcliff Slocum pitching to Barry Bonds. And I don't want anybody to misconstrue what I was saying. I said, I blamed you on the air for the loss. And we discussed it. And I always got the obligatory, like to manage against you. But my point being that one bad move by Tony La Russa doesn't make him a bad man.
No. Your mama says seeing the red dot is just having the vision to see the seams moving, right? Yes, the seams rotation make a red dot appear. That's true. But Ted Williams, the comment about smelling smoke when you hit a foul ball, that's 100%. It sounds like to me synesthesia, which is you see or you smell things.
You have incredible
that trigger certain senses trigger other things. And you'll hear it from like musicians a lot who or artists, things like that. Great athletes seem to have it a lot too. So maybe the red dot thing's a little bit different, but do you smell smoke when you hit a foul ball is the most synesthetic thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Now, let's get back to Yadi for a second because he's a special assistant to the general manager. And one of the things that Walt Jocketty always did was he would go to players and say, hey, what do you think of player X, Y, or Z? And it was really valuable. And Jimmy Edmonds talked about this, how when Walt would come to him and give him 3 players, Edmonds would be really honest with him and say, hey, that's a guy you're never going to win with. The other guy is talented, but he doesn't have a feel for the game. The other guy is talented, and he really has a feel for the game. I would take him. If I had a choice of all 3, I'd take him. The general manager really trusted the players, and Edmonds wasn't the only guy that Walt would go to. This is a really valuable resource if Yadi, who's 3 years clear of playing now, is still paying attention to the sport. I think Yadier Molina can determine who he would like to play against and, more important, who he would not like to play against, because if you can get a guy that other players don't want to play against, that's the kind of guy you want on your team. And so if Chaim goes to him and says, okay, I want you to rank these 3 players for me, and Yadi is honest in his assessment and is paying close enough of attention, I think that could be a really valuable resource for Chaim Bloom.
I mean, I also think we were talking about it earlier this morning with Jimmy the Cat Hayes about how really a lot of leaders left on this team. Is Mason Wynn going to step up as a leader? Is one of the pitchers going to be more vocal? I wonder, just having a winning mindset like a guy from Yadier Molina, just a guy who has seen and helped establish culture. And it's hard to establish culture when you're not winning, but having a veteran like Molina at spring training, that I got to think that might be a very material thing, is just how much, just having like a guy you talk about works out, goes and does drills, comes back to work out, just like showing guys, this is the work ethic you want to have. You want to catch the most games behind the plate, that'll ever be caught since I started playing, because no one ever going to have that kind of longevity behind the plate ever again. This is how you do it. Hey, Mason Wynn, your knees feeling good? You ready to push yourself 110%? Like, I wonder if there's that tangible hit that Yadi can bring to this team while all the veterans are gone, essentially.
Well, and there are things that Yadier Molina has done as a baseball player that nobody else would do. And that's why I talk about maybe he can imbue some toughness. I mean, you remember the day when Yadi, as a catcher, went from ball 2 to ball 1 and then basically came back within a week or so. It was just unbelievable. I would cry and probably be down for a year if that happened to me. Maybe 2 years. But he had surgery, and I don't know. I think they did have to put him on the IL because he wanted to play, and they said no, you can't.
Oh no, Randy Carricker is down. He is motioning for a microphone. He's motioning for a microphone. I retire. I'm done. No, I retire on the field now. Yeah. I'm done. I've done enough for this sport. Thank you. Goodbye.
Through tears, by the way.
Just retiring on the spot.
Yeah.
We go down now to the field, Mike, which Randy Carricker has dragged from from the stone facade behind home plate and is now trying to speak into.
Okay, guys, you got to tell me this. I just squeezed my legs together when I remembered that. He got a testicle crushed
Jesus Christ.
by a foul ball.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so if you think that's I'm squeezing my legs together right now because it hurts me to hear it. So does that hurt you just to hear that?
Yes. Yes, it hurts me to hear it.
Okay, I like how in the presser when asked about the rebuild,
we
BD
did this already.
Jr. answered by saying they're not in a rebuild, but they're building. Well, they are rebuilding and building.
And listen, here's the thing. I don't think Dwight's take is that wrong. That's because calling it a rebuild would have to imply taking ownership or accountability for recent failures. God forbid anyone do that these days. I called it yesterday. I used the word pride. I think there was a little bit of pride with BD correcting the media on that usage of that word is 100% of pride and a little bit of an ego thing. And hey, that's I'm not surprised by that either. If I was part of $1 billion empire that included a bunch of Arby's and the St. Louis Cardinals, you couldn't tell me nothing.
Okay, now let me ask you
Being
this
honest.
though. Here's another way to look at this. You last year you didn't bring back Lynn, you didn't bring back Gibson. You traded Helsley, you traded Matz, you traded Maton, you traded Sonny Gray, you traded Contreras, you traded Arenado. So what are you doing right now with virtually no veterans on your team outside of Dustin May? With virtually no veterans on your team. Ryan Stanek.
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing right now? Are you in the midst of it seems to me like you've already torn the house down. You're doing a rebuild. You've got one of those lots in Ladue with a really old house, and you've already torn it down. So what do you do after you completely tear it down?
You got to build it.
You build. So maybe that's the way he's looking at it.
Yeah, but I think I don't think if you could also get him to agree that over the last year there's been a teardown, but I don't think he would agree with that phraseology either.
Well, you got to ask him.
Something tells me based off the history of everything I know about the DeWitts that the phrase teardown would also not go over well with them.
Yeah, but I also think that pride does play a role, to your point, with them, because they're kind of like the people that come to the winter warm-up and ask about Bo Hart. Or somebody actually came to the winter warm-up this weekend and asked when Matt Koperniak was going to be up. So you know what? I'm proud of our listener for going because there's a very good chance based on our comment section that it's one of you who did that. But here, we have a viewer that we love who is relentlessly optimistic, right? A Cardinal fan that always thinks the Cardinals are going to win. I know there's a lot of Cardinal fans like that out there. What if Bill DeWitt's just one of those guys that he always thinks they're going to win?
Well, considering he's one of the people who has actual control over that outcome, I think it's a little different. Just a little.
Why?
Because he's not just a fan. He can actually affect the ability to win.
But maybe it's just blind belief.
That's for damn sure. Yes.
Yeah. And hey, there were times where I counted the team out and they did come back and win. And I think that's one of the things that has not worked in the Cardinals' favor is, and I know a lot of you agree with this, winning in 06 and 11 was awesome. But it also gave the Cardinals belief that they could get to the playoffs and use the randomness of the postseason to get to the postseason and win. By the way, I think that's gone now. I don't think the randomness of the postseason is nearly what it was 10, 12, 15, 20 years ago. We're at the 20-year anniversary of the 06 team. I don't think that that randomness with the Dodgers as they are presently constituted exists. And I know people will say, well, what about the Diamondbacks a few years ago?
Yeah.
Well,
the Rangers?
The Rangers were really good, and they went out and they got some pretty good players, right? Didn't they go get Semien and Seager and Scherzer and DeGrom and those guys? And the Diamondbacks had a top 3 Cy Young guy. They had Merrill Kelly. They had a rookie, Brandon Pfaadt. And then they had the rookie and Corbin Carroll. They had a lot of really good things going for them. And that was a nice convergence for their team. But there were a lot of Cardinal teams once you got past Waino that didn't really have number 2, 3, or 4 starters. So I do think that there is a level of belief on the part of ownership, or there has been at least, where they thought maybe they had a better chance to win than they really did have a chance to win.
And that's why, listen, I'm not happy that the Cardinals had multiple bad seasons in a row, but I think there's a lot of fans out there who would agree with me that something had to shock the system, and the fact that it happened is a good thing.
Yep. Skyboy 76767. You can say what you want about Bill DeWitt Jr., but he knows baseball and he cares about baseball. He's got a house in Jupiter that he's in many times during the course of the season. And the Cardinals have an A-ball team that plays down there, and he goes to the games and he watches the games. As a matter of fact, one time he was at a game, and these are games where 100 people are there. And he goes down to his coaches afterwards because he's wondering, okay, why is our left fielder in left field and not in center? And he went and asked the coaches, and they kind of said, well, I don't know. So they moved Harrison Bader to center field, and he wound up becoming a Gold Glover. So you're right. He pays attention. He gets reports every day during the season on the minor leaguers, pays attention to them. He started, for better or worse, this analytics movement by bringing Jeff Luhnow into baseball in 2003, and he did that so that the Cardinals would have a competitive edge. And now they've got to try to find another way to build a competitive edge with the finances as they are in baseball, because the Cardinals aren't going to be able to swim in the waters that the Dodgers or the Yankees are going to swim in. The Yankees just brought back Cody Bellinger today. So how do you do that? You got to do it with good young players, and that's what Bloom and this staff are hoping to build. You draft talented players and then draft talented athletes. Hopefully they're good baseball players, but you have to turn them into good players by the time they get to the majors. How often have we seen guys that get here and you feel like, how did he get here? Because he just can't play. And the perfect example, unfortunately, is Jordan Walker. The way the Cardinals allowed him, Ivan Herrera, bringing him up to catch with, and Chaim even admitted, he said, I don't know that he was given the best opportunity. There are a myriad examples of the Cardinals bringing up players that weren't ready to be brought up over the course of the last 6 or 7 years.
Moving on here, we had somebody mentioned in the chat, so I thought I'd mention it as well. You can find a much longer discussion on the Cardinals corner outfield search now, including Austin Hayes and the report with Miguel Andujar from yesterday. You can find a longer discussion of that on STL Sports Central between Brendan Schaefer and Joe Roderick from earlier today. One other piece of news that came out yesterday just after the show was over, and that was Evan Drellich tweeting out this quote, a 100% certainty that the owners will push for a salary cap in wake of Kyle Tucker deal with the Dodgers. That was from an ownership source. Quoting again, these guys are going to go for a cap no matter what it takes. And Evan Drellich also put out on Twitter later today, of course, a message that doesn't surprise anybody, but a floor means a cap means a floor. They are completely and 100% tied. Not a shocking revelation to anybody. We've been talking about that the cap's going to happen. We've been talking about the inevitability of a lockout, but maybe this realization being made in January with the deal expiring in December, maybe that's good news for the viability of a 2027 season.
Well, a couple of things. Number one of the points that Evan Drellich made in his article was that perhaps the only two franchises that would vote against salary floor or salary cap would be the Dodgers and the Mets. Ultimately, if you're going to do it, you have to have revenue sharing on the part of ownership. And that means you have to get the Yankees on board. That means you have to get the Cubs on board. And I don't know that baseball owners can be not greedy.
Yeah.
Generous would be, so that they can have a better sport. But I was also, when I asked a member of our organization what they thought of the Cardinals being in St. Louis here, what they thought of the Tucker deal. This person said, I woke up that morning and saw the deal, and I thought this might be the straw that breaks the camel's back in terms of anybody that was not thinking about a salary cap now has to buy in. Because if you look at, I'm going to do a quick search here. I want to see what teams do you think could afford $60 million a year?
I think it's probably the same list we had last year of the teams that are competing each year. I think that you probably start with the 8 teams that we're talking about being competitive, and maybe one or two of those drop out, like the Brewers, because we know they can't spend, but maybe a team like LA, the Angels, that isn't good, but we know has money, and can spend a little bit because of the market they're in. And obviously they don't have the deal that the Dodgers have for the TV deal that allows them to do that much. But nonetheless, I think probably you're still talking about maybe 8 at the most, maybe 6.
So last year, let's just look at the Rangers as an example.
That's probably a good
They
one.
spend 63.8% percent of their money last year this is 2024. 63.8% of their revenue was spent on payroll. $275 million in payroll, $432 million in revenue. So theoretically, they could still have $370 million left over. But if they add a $60 million player, let's just say $50 million player to their roster, then all of a sudden their payroll goes from $275 million to $325, and their revenues are $432. They couldn't do it. Now, you get to the bottom half of the league in terms of revenue, and that's where you really have issues. A team like, let's start with the Cardinals, revenues of $373 million. If you're spending $60 million of your $373, that gives you $313 million to pay the rest of your players, your minor league system, travel, insurance, and a massive front office. Remember, the Cardinals have nearly 400 employees. They didn't lay anybody off during the COVID pandemic. And so they're a franchise that is going to maintain. They aren't going to lay people off so that they can pay a player $60 million. I just don't think that there are, you said maybe 6 teams could afford the
6 to 8.
Yeah, I am with you 100%. I really do think that teams would have a great deal of difficulty, most franchises, in signing a $60 million player. Now,
if you think about it, there's no reason why any of the Chicago, LA, or New York teams shouldn't be able to do that.
Exactly.
Like that's 6 right there.
Yeah.
And then let's add in Boston.
But the White Sox are never going to be there.
But isn't that their own? Isn't that a symbol of their own incompetence? Like they're in Chicago. Shouldn't they be able to at least swing with the big boys every once in a while?
You would think so, but if
it's about TV markets, not tickets.
But you look at the Angels. The Angels don't. The Dodgers do.
Yeah. But the Angels can spend big because they have before. We've seen them spend stupid money without getting big crowds and without any actually winning. So we know that the financial base of the Angels, partially because of LA, means they can. So, and yeah, maybe the White Sox are out of it, but I mean, we're talking that's 5 teams in the big markets.
Yeah.
Add in Philly, Boston, and we're up to 7 right there. So yeah, I think 6 to 8 teams could do it. And just like that being the cap on who we see as being competitive this year, it's not enough teams.
No, that's exactly
the bottom line. That's not enough teams to make it actually fun, competitive, interesting
level of parity. But I thought it was an interesting story by Evan Drellich, and and if you are subscribed to The Athletic, you should check it out because it really does get the feel, in my opinion, of an ownership that is prepared to go to the wall for cost certainty, a salary cap and a salary floor.
Does this reporting now and the Dodgers kind of shocking the system, does that give you more hope about a full season in 2027? Or maybe does this give you the first strands of hope about a full season in 2027?
I don't think players are educated enough about this. And I think that's one thing Rob Manfred is trying to do when he goes and has his meetings with the various teams. I think, and we kind of touched on this, it's kind of a societal issue. Like when the 1% gets the tax cuts, there are a large swath of people that think, yeah, they deserve their tax cuts, and I want them to have their tax cuts because I'm going to be one of them. And I think it's probably the same thing with baseball players. Well, we don't need a salary cap because one day I'm going to get the $765 million contract, when the very strong likelihood, I guess it's less likely that you'll be a 1%er than you'll be a $765 million player. But the vast majority of players would benefit from a floor and a cap. And there's maybe, well, here, we can tell you right now, 10% of the players last year made 72% of the money in Major League Baseball. 750 players, so 75 players made 72% of the money. So the other 90% should probably get their head screwed on straight and realize that, if I get a salary floor, rather than having a $760,000 minimum or $770,000 minimum salary, that will probably go up. And my team, whether I'm the Pirates or the Guardians or the Cardinals or the White Sox or the Twins, my team is going to have to spend to a certain threshold, and I will probably be able to take advantage of that because a rising tide lifts all boats. I think that is what the players need to be educated about is, hey, the likelihood is, let's just pick out a random, how about Riley O'Brien? Riley O'Brien is 31 years old. Riley O'Brien is never going to get that massive contract like Edwin Diaz got. So why shouldn't Riley O'Brien, and I hate to point one guy out, but I'm just using him as an example because he's 31 years old and he's going to be in his second year of Major League Baseball.
Proud of you for not also doing the accent.
Oh, okay.
Riley O'Brien? No, I'm saying don't do it.
But why would he not want a salary floor? And I think that sometimes people need to come to grips with the idea that they're not going to be paid to like a superstar. And that's one of those guys. And there's a lot of guys like that in baseball that make their Major League debut at 26 or 27 and for some reason think that they're going to make all that money and they would benefit greatly. And they have to look at it from the floor standpoint. They're going to benefit from the floor because they'll probably never reach the cap. They aren't going to be one of those players that causes a team to reach the cap. So take advantage of somebody offering you a floor.
Just how many players do we see who when they finally hit that mark that gets them the pension, that it's like that's their
huge,
their big career
10
milestone.
Years is monstrous. Yeah.
Bam! It's like, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
It's nothing else matters at that point. So being able to get taken care of and set your family up in a comfortable life and a career that ends before you turn 35 for most people, and sometimes before you turn 30 for a lot as well. Especially for a sport that where as it stands right now, you can't actually get paid until you're 28. Sometimes Brendan Donovan, you're 30. And so yeah, it's got to change.
And Samuel Howe, pay the MILB players. Yeah, they're
that too,
but they're on their way. At least they're getting housing, they're getting food, they're getting more money than they've ever gotten in the past. And now that they are part of the Players Association, that's a good thing. They will get more money because they'll be able to collectively bargain. MILB players have never had the ability to collectively bargain, and for some reason, I don't know why, but major league players were against having the minor leaguers under their umbrella, their union umbrella, but that has changed now. So there will be more money for the minor leaguers.
Also, let me say this. Paying the minor leaguers and making sure they're stable is incredibly important to the integrity and future of baseball. Because as we can see in a lot of situations now, having people who are desperate for money is dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, big time. Big time. Yep. I was talking to Rick Horton the other night about whether or not if he could change anything, if he would, about his minor league career. And everybody I talked to, all the major leaguers, BT, the late, great Chris Duncan, talking to Brian Jordan, Bernard Gilkey, Ray Langford, that group, Zeal from the 90s. They wouldn't change a thing. They loved being able to build the camaraderie and be able to tell the stories now of five guys sharing an apartment together.
Mm-hmm.
It was just really, they apparently had a great time. Now, there were players, and Ricky told me, he said, I had a teammate in AAA that had 3 kids, and he would have to go home and work during the off season. And another guy that had been around in minor league baseball and kept knocking on the door, he had a couple of kids. It can be done, but you have to be able to exist during the off season and do something to enhance your income. But to your point, the MILB players are going to be paid.
I like this one last point from one Blues fan, because it does highlight the smaller part of this potential lockout that is, and as Randy's been talking about as well, which is Harper kicking out Manfred from the Philly locker room is ridiculous. The cap doesn't help him, and that's the big thing, is that you're going to get a lot of probably very public statements from the guys who have benefited from a lack of cap and think they might benefit one more time in their life from a lack of a cap. And those guys clearly have no problem being vocal, and they will sway, as Randy was referring to, all those guys who say, yeah, but that's going to be me. I'm going to be Bryce Harper. I'm going to tap into the free agent market 3 times. and I'm gonna make $300-400 million in my life, and those people will have that mindset, and Harper will, I'm sure, be the champion of that mindset.
Who do you think in baseball is most stridently against a salary cap? What individual?
I think
In and around the sport.
Scott Boras.
There you go.
Well, yeah. Did you see his stuff today with Drellich?
No.
Drellich has this awesome quote from Boras where he says,
about
the Dodgers are not a system issue. They are the benefactors of acquiring Shohei Ohtani's MLB's astatine, short-lived and rare. Basically saying the sport isn't broken, the system's not broken. This is just a little thing because the Dodgers have all this Japanese money coming in. He's trying to paper over it.
But the Dodgers won the World Series in 2020 also, and they've been the highest paid team before they got Shohei Ohtani. But he's got his talking points, and I don't know that all of these guys are going to say to Rob Manfred, get out of our clubhouse. But a guy like Harper, he doesn't want the young players hearing the reality of the situation. So he is going to cause a ruckus so that young players don't hear it and don't listen. And I like some of these guys, but their talking points are going to be very similar to each other's. Cody Bellinger, Garrett Cole, Harper, Seager, Alonso, Bregman, Skubal, Scherzer, Bogarts, Blake Snell, Correa, Rodriguez. Their talking points are going to be very similar because their talking points come from one guy. Where does Scott Boras make his money? He makes it on the backs of great baseball players that are making a ton of money and are not constrained by a cap. Now, I think baseball needs to do a better job because if you look at the highest paid players in baseball, Soto is number one, Ohtani's number two, and then I think we figured out that there were like 58 guys from other sports, NBA players and quarterbacks from the NFL, and then like number 60 was an MLB player. And now, obviously, on AAV, Tucker will walk into that realm as well. But the key here is that Scott Boras doesn't want a governor placed on his ability to get Juan Soto $765 million. Juan Soto could get $400 million, right? Because Patrick Mahomes got $500 million from the Chiefs. If there were a cap, Soto could get a ton of money. It just wouldn't be as much. But if Boras would take care of all of his clients and not just his favored ones, he could still make as much money with the salary cap system.
Yeah, and
remember when Jordan Montgomery fired him?
Like we know that they're essentially overpaying Tucker by the AAV. Like his production is nowhere near $60 million.
Mm-hmm.
He's not even $40 million production, especially last year. Is there any chance that the Dodgers, because we're all pissed off at the Dodgers, but at the same time the Dodgers and some other owners are pissed off at the cheap owners in the league? Is there any chance that the Dodgers signed Kyle Tucker to a poison pill because they wanted to break the camel's back?
No, I just don't.
I don't think they're playing 5D chess like that.
I think they are clueless right now about what they don't care about money. And their president, Stan Kasten, said, we might have a budget, but we haven't seen it yet. We might at some time have a budget, but we haven't seen it. So they really don't play by different rules. But
if there's
they got different money than everybody else.
But if there's a cap that's still going to let them bully people, because even it's going to be a soft cap that has a luxury tax on top of it, similar to the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And so their teams are going to, as long as they're willing to spend dollar for dollar on cash, they're going to spend into the luxury tax year after year after year after year. Like the Dodgers are still going to be able to do more than most teams are able to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they're still going to have an advantage even if there is a cap. But Pittsburgh Pirates don't get to be cheapskates anymore. They have to spend money. They can't take the revenue share from the TV deal and pocket it all, which we know pisses off a lot of owners who are spending in more than the Pirates are. So I just wonder if there's a little bit of the Dodgers, to your point, where they don't care about the cash, but they get to now break the camel's back, force the Pirates to finally actually spend some damn money year by year, and maybe there's a little bit of satisfaction in that for them.
I think they're doing it to win.
That's a nice rebound. It's a nice secondary split off thing to happen. Yeah, sure.
I don't think that I don't think that they would be trying to send that message with those players. And talked to somebody else in baseball after the Tucker signing who said that made a good point. If we do get a cap, The Dodgers have the Yamamoto contract, and if we get a cap that goes into place in 28, unless everything is grandfathered in, they've got Yamamoto, they've got Ohtani, they've got Betts, now they've got Tucker, they've got all these Glasnow, Snell I think has 4. They've got all these contracts. They might have to divest of some of these contracts if there's a cap too.
I think something tells me there's going to be a situation where they just have to pay like $3 per dollar, and it's just like all of a sudden the Dodgers 1 year their cash spend on their contracts are going to be $750 million because they have to spend a bunch of luxury tax money. I mean, the Warriors a few years ago. Now the Dodgers have blown it apart. The Warriors a few years ago had set because the Warriors were like they were in like their 3rd year of playing in the luxury, so they were paying the repeater tax.
But they didn't care, right?
And so exactly they were paying literally a full dollar for every dollar they were over the cap, and so they had the most costly cash roster in sports history, over $400 million in straight cash that season. And they didn't care because they were at the end of one of the greatest runs in sports history. And so I just think we'll see I think we'll see 4 or 5 year runs by the Dodgers where they're paying full dollar for dollar over the fact that in luxury, and everyone's still like, well, is it really a cap? No, it's going to be a soft cap, probably for that reason.
It'll be interesting to see, by the way, if Mark Walter, if you didn't read that great piece at ESPN.com today about the Lakers, Mark Walter, the Dodgers owner, bought the Lakers. It'll be interesting to see if he works like Joe Lacob did in
that's a really good point.
It's Golden State, and eventually you'll reach a point of diminishing returns.
Yeah, and then the NBA changed some of their rules since that year where the Warriors had that luxury tax deal. It's now harder to move big contracts. It's harder to hoard stuff. It's easier for mid-range teams to hold on and kind of lock their stars in. That's why it's so tricky for, like, say, Giannis to get traded out of Milwaukee.
And he doesn't want to go anywhere.
Yeah, he also isn't a huge fan of it. That's true. He likes his smoothies and being a smaller. He doesn't want to be in front of all those cameras, I don't think. But that's a side thing. It shows you how I think a soft cap can work with the MLB in the future, and how teams with a lot of money can still spend a lot.
And here's the point: is when the Bucks want to keep Giannis, they can afford to keep Giannis. When the Brewers want to keep Devin Williams or Corbin Burns or maybe even Freddie Peralta very soon, they can't, because they know that somebody else is going to scoop that player up. When let me throw another team out there for you. When the Kansas City Royals want to keep Carlos Beltran, they can't, because they know that somebody from a big market, the Mets, for example, are going to take Carlos Beltran away from them. So they can't keep him. The Kansas City Chiefs want to keep Patrick Mahomes. They can't, because of the system that's instituted in the National Football League. When the Edmonton Oilers want to keep both Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, they can, because of the system that they have set up, where a New York team isn't automatically going to be able to steal the players from a smaller market team. So for me, from a fan's perspective, I want to see my team have a better chance to win, have an equal chance to win. You know who the 2 teams in the NFL with the worst records over the last 11 years are?
The New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins. Oh, New York Giants. Holy crap! Yeah, I forgot about that. They did have all those top picks in a row there.
Right.
And so Thomas, Saquon Barkley, Jackson Dart.
So the 2 New York teams, the 2 teams from the biggest market in the NFL, are the 2 teams that have the worst record over the last 11 years. Why? Because with a salary cap, a premium is placed on intelligence, on being able to build a team and to allocate your resources properly. There is no requirement. Now, the Dodgers are smart. Don't think that I'm saying the Dodgers aren't smart, but there is no premium placed on allocation of resources. The Dodgers can go out and pay Blake Snell, $32 million a year, whatever they're paying him, and tell him during spring training, yeah, you're probably going to sit for June and July and August, and we'll bring you back in September. Did the same thing with Glasnow. That's why they want Freddie Peralta, because they actually literally sit pitchers during the course of the regular season so that those pitchers are primed for the postseason.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Just some comments here. Where did it go?
And this
Space Magic Storm Dodgers did this past season. I believe it was over 105% penalty for third year in a row violation, above 60 million over the soft cap. Yes, I just think and we also have somebody mentioning here that you need to get a hard cap. I cannot believe that baseball is going to go from no salary cap and floor to a hard cap. That would shock the living hell out of me. It's going to be some form of soft cap. They're going like the luxury tax. I know it's already been a thing. I'm saying you have it in a similar way the NBA has it. And I know they have repeater taxes and things like that. You make them more strict. To Skyboy points here, I wouldn't mind if a team's really goes for it over a couple of years. Just can't be able to always go for it. And that's kind of what the NBA's repeater tax was built to do. And this isn't the current NBA. There's somebody else saying, well, the NBA's made it a lot more untenable now. Yes, they tightened restrictions. I'm saying like 2016 NBA, you could have like a team go on a 5-year run. In years 4 and 5, the ownership had to pay a absolute ton in cash. But it was a fun thing. We got runs. It was a good thing, and it lasted for a 4 or 5 year run. It didn't feel, to their point, like it wasn't going to go on forever.
By the way, we should note this. Before there's ever any negotiation on the part of the owners with the players about a salary cap, they need to get their own house in order. And I will say that it's ridiculous, preposterous. What other words could I use?
Oh man, I have not watched a Jackie episode of Seinfeld in a long time.
Egregious.
Pernicious.
So
pernicious.
It will be all of those things. If ownership goes to the players and say, yeah, we want a salary cap and salary floor, but they don't have revenue sharing. This has to, the owner versus owner part of this has to be solved before we can even say one word in their negotiations about owner versus player. The revenue sharing needs to be a real thing. Otherwise, it makes no sense to have a cap, because what you're doing then is putting a cap in place for these ultra high revenue teams like the Yankees and the Dodgers just to pocket that money. The players should be able to benefit from all of the revenue that the sport earns. In the NFL, that's the case. In the NBA, that's the case. In hockey, that is the case. If the players aren't going to be able to take advantage of sharing all of the revenue, and that would include local TV revenue, then it should be a non-starter for the players. I would not blame the players then if they say, no way, you guys got to share revenue first, if they would turn it down.
Ralph Jenkins says, I think with the hard cap, the Dodgers would only have a slight advantage in free agency. Once they're against the cap, they will have off seasons where they will hardly be able to spend with a cap, and that's why there will not be a hard cap. It would shock the hell out of me. Enrico Palazzo says you need higher penalties. Yes, and the thing is, I still think right now, if they were trying to build this roster, I think there's a world where Mark Walter says, you have to pay $3 to every one. He'd go, all right, fine.
Well,
I'm going to win another World Series.
The highest tax right now, if you remember, during the last collective bargaining negotiations, the highest tax is called the Steve Cohen tax.
Yep.
Right? Because everybody was worried in baseball about Steve Cohen going crazy, and they didn't. they wanted to protect themselves against him.
Pay it if you want to go Steve Cohen crazy. Shell out the cash. Yep. I respect that, but there needs to Rico Palazzo's points. There probably needs to be even higher penalties so that if the Dodgers want to do this, that's fine. But it's gonna absolutely cost you. And maybe for some people that's not good enough. For me, if there is a crazy owner who says I am a billionaire and I want to spend all my billions on winning championships, I actually think that's a fun thing for a sport to have.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's annoying that it's the Dodgers, but as long as they actually are paying out of their pocket like crazy, I'm actually okay with biting the bullet on that. I know some people might not, but like if that's going to be the thing, but again, I want it to be a point where it is a punitive thing that they are then de-incentivized from doing it more than just like in 3 or 4 year runs.
And my concern isn't as much with those teams that are taking the shot at dominating. My concern is the teams that have no chance.
That's right.
And the fans of the teams that have no chance. I'm really not worried like you about the teams that spend. I'm more concerned about the teams that can't.
Or the teams that don't. Because like with the A's, how much better would baseball be over the last 10 years if the A's would have been forced to spend to a floor? It would have been better for the sport. It would have been better for the players. It would have been better for everyone involved.
Yep. And the Marlins.
And the Marlins and the
Rays,
Pirates
yeah,
and all of them.
Yeah, you're right. It makes 100% sense. You know what else makes 100% sense is getting in touch with our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook, because right now with DraftKings, you can get this amazing deal. If you go to DraftKings and you set yourself up for using DraftKings, you can get an amazing deal because you can bet on a prop bet for the championship games this weekend in the National Football League. And they'll have your back with early exit protection. If the player in your eligible NFL prop bet goes down at any point in the first half, you still get paid in cash. All you need to do is hop on DraftKings, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, and use the code that we've got right there up on the screen, STL Sports. That's code STL Sports to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets. If your bet wins in partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or call ccbg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, call dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
Randy, I need a good reason.
Yes.
Not to salvage some happiness out of this just absolutely bleak football slate.
Okay.
I need a reason not to just bet as much as I possibly can on Patriots minus 5.5. Because it feels like, I mean, I honestly feel like I should bet the money line because I don't know how they would, I don't know how Vrabel's defense doesn't at least control the game enough of Jarrett Stidham on the other side of the ball to make it that Drake May can score 17 points and win this 17-14. I'm having trouble figuring out how the Broncos can beat what is very clearly an extremely well-rounded Patriots team.
So I like that one. We talked about prop bets there in the advertisement. How about this one? Is there any way in the world that Jarrett Stidham gets over 187.5 yards passing? Any way in the world?
I'm not seeing it.
I'm not either.
And so I would go under on Jarrett Stidham, and I would go Patriots money line if I'm feeling frosty. I'm not that's one of those ones where I play it. It's like the Texans against the Steelers. Like I play it and I'm like, yeah, I know there's a world in which I lose this bet. I just can't imagine it.
No, I'm with you.
Like yes, sure, Drake May could fall apart after all this composure he's shown as a young quarterback, and he could throw a bunch of picks to, yes, a very good Denver defense. But on the other side of the ball, how do the Patriots, unless there's multiple defensive touchdowns by the Broncos, Patriots are walking away with this one.
I think so. And I think the over-under was 187.5. I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah. I'm thinking Patriots minus 5.5.
Yeah, I think that's
is what I'm on.
Yeah. It's going to be fun, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that on tomorrow's show. We also want to hit on one other thing today, though, and that is last night, St. Louis University got a scare. They were up by 17, and the lead was down to 2 towards the end. The Billikens come away with a victory, though, and they're now 18-1. Go Bills. And Mizzou just couldn't do it at the end. Georgia did. Mizzou didn't. Mizzou had a chance at the end, and they could not hit the shot. So that's one of the things when you talk about a team going on the road and winning a game, and St. Louis U has been great on the road so far. That was a tough, gritty win for the Billikens and a tough, gritty win for Georgia, and the Tigers gave them a little help at the end.
Yeah, that was an extremely annoying game. I don't know what Dennis Gates is doing, calling the timeout there and not saving it on defense and not saving it for the offensive possession, because then the offensive possession there's nothing worse than an offensive possession that happens where your team literally did not have a chance to actually score the bucket they needed. Down by 2 and no urgency to get the ball over midcourt, no urgency to get an actual good shot, just a chuck. And that point was extremely disappointing. And you had the number 24 team in the net down at home. That's a Q1 win, baby. And you just let it completely 100%, quite almost literally, slip through your fingers.
Yeah.
That's annoying.
And so right now, Mizzou, or let's start with St. Louis U. They're 22 in the net rankings, which is pretty darn good. And they will be able to hang in there. They go to St. Bonnie's now. That'll be a tough one for St. Louis U. Mizzou falls to number 70 now in the net rankings, and that would be out of the NCAA tournament.
Yes, they put themselves back in the conversation with some wins there, obviously some big wins to open up the conference tournament. But when you blow a Q1 chance, that's going to hurt. And obviously, it's away. They're 70. It's still a Q1 victory for Georgia, but they could fall out of that point. Yeah, they need to lock things back up in conference play. It's the same thing again. I can complain about them calling a timeout for offensive reasons or on defense, because you need it for offense, but at the same time, it's not like this Missouri team has shown a consistent ability to actually generate good shots off of timeouts in the first place. So maybe I'm just kind of just bitching about something that doesn't matter, but it was a poorly handled game. They still at times shouldn't have people out there that they should have. Trent Pierce probably needs to be in the game on a slightly different rotation, a little bit earlier out of the gate, off the bench to start the game. Maybe formulate it, make it so that he's always in the game at the end of the game as well. It's tricky, but if you have a guy coming off the bench, you gotta be able to script your rotations at least a little bit to the point where you have him earlier on in the first half, and then you have him late in the second half. And I didn't like some of the moves from Gates and company. And unfortunately, that seems to be my takeaway for a lot of Mizzou games I watch.
And Charlton Young, good assistant coach that left. He went to Florida State. I think Mizzou is missing him. By the way, in the Ken Pom rankings, Mizzou number 55 and SLU is number 29. And we should mention Illinois because they just keep on rolling. They're really good, aren't they? They've got every element that you need to win it all. Illinois number 8 in the Ken Pom rankings, and when you look at the net rankings, they're right there in the top 10 too. So they're pretty darn good.
Yeah, those Euros can ball.
Yep.
Is the bottom line when it comes to Illinois.
And how do you like the owner of the Bills, Terry Pagula? He's a Cronkyite.
Oh,
they're buddies. Terry Pagula is. It doesn't sound like he put a lot of thought into firing Sean McDermott.
I don't know what to take away from this. You have the comments at the presser where he says it wasn't Brandon Beane, it was the coaching staff who were on Keon Coleman. Terry Pagula has now clarified to the AP that he was not referring to Sean McDermott. Which I don't know which is worse. The fact that he's saying this now, and you can take the truth of it to your own opinion. The fact that he's saying this now, or the fact that an assistant coach apparently was helping make the first-round draft pick for the Bills last spring.
Yeah, that's not good.
I don't know which one of those is worse. The fact that he thinks we're going to believe this, or the actual thing that it's true, and the first-round pick was entirely moved not by the head coach or GM, but an assistant coach or coordinator.
Yeah, they've got problems there. And
what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, well,
what is Brandon Beane's issue? By the way, there's clips out there of him talking about how the 4.57 by Keon Coleman's 40 at the combine will make it easier for them to get him. Doesn't really sound like a GM who's having his arm twisted behind his back to pick a guy, does it?
Not really, no. So they've got problems in Buffalo, and we feel for the Bills Mafia because there's a really good chance that things will get a lot worse there before they get better.
You have Josh Allen. And that kind of gives you a nice base to work off of. They're going to get a really good coach because they have Josh Allen.
Oh
no! What?
Well, there's no guarantee that they're going to get a good coach.
I think they will. I think they will just because having Josh Allen means they're the best. They're the best job still on the market.
Who's the best coach? Yeah,
they're
Baltimore.
Oh yeah. Well, who'd you rather have right now, Lamar or Josh Allen?
But you've got Pro Bowl players at left tackle. You've got right tackle. You've got a center. You've got Roquan Smith. You've got Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah,
you've got a lot more good players on Baltimore, and you have Eric DeCosta.
That's true.
Who's their general manager and drafts all these good players.
Brandon Beane has.
And Derrick Henry's pretty good.
Brandon Beane has 2 Pro Bowlers. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's problematic. Sorry, what was your question?
I wonder who the coach out there is that they're going to get that's better than Sean McDermott.
Oh, that's fair.
So maybe they will. Maybe they'll get. Maybe Joe Brady will be a great head coach. But
if Joe Brady was the coach wouldn't Joe Brady be the most likely candidate for the coach who impacted the Keon Coleman pick if it's not Sean McDermott?
Yeah.
So then why is Joe Brady the top candidate?
Well, this is an interesting thing about football is just because a guy is a great coordinator doesn't mean that he's going to be a great head coach. And just because a guy is not a coordinator, like Joe Gibbs was only a coordinator for 1 year before he got a head coaching job. He's the best coach in the history of the league. Mike Tomlin was only a coordinator for 1 year before he got the job with the Steelers. John Harbaugh was never a coordinator. He was a special teams coordinator, but he wasn't an offensive or defensive coordinator. What you need is a personality. You need a leader of people. You need somebody who can stand before that room. And as Coach Vermeil said in his introductory press conference with the St. Louis Rams, you need a guy that will coach the coaches, that'll implement a philosophy, set a standard for everybody in the organization, not just, by the way, players and coaches, but everybody in the organization, somebody who is a great CEO. That's what you need now in the NFL. So it doesn't matter if Joe Brady was wanting Keon Coleman. What you need, and maybe he does, maybe he doesn't have the personality, is somebody with the personality to lead.
Yeah, and honestly, the big move for me in the NFL in the last 24 hours has to be that we, in my opinion, now have the 21st century version of Mike Ditka, and his very mercurial offensive coordinator, but the roles are then switched. Buddy Ryan, his defensive coordinator, but the roles are switched, which is instead of the offensive guy being, and they're all both offensive guys, but I think honestly the oil and water of Harbaugh and McDaniel in San Diego is going to be so much fun. Like, there's a chance they win a Super Bowl and punch each other on the sideline. I legitimately think we could have Ditka and Ryan all over again.
I don't think that Mike McDaniel is that tough.
Well, I'm not saying it's going to be, the most, moral thing that John Harbaugh has ever done or Jim Harbaugh has ever done. But, Mike McDaniel maybe gets a little lippy one time. And
I don't think that Jim Harbaugh is, I don't think he's closed-minded. I think, or open-minded. Ditka, well, and here's what happened with the Bears. So when Ditka got hired, before he got hired, all the defensive players, many of whom wound up in the Hall of Fame, sent a letter to the owner, George Halas, and said, we want Buddy Ryan to be our defensive coordinator. So Ditka inherited Buddy Ryan. Buddy wasn't going anywhere. And so Ryan essentially became the head coach of the defense. And Ditka was the head coach of the offense. And they went at it at practice. It was like a game because Buddy was going, and his defensive players, they wanted to beat up the offense. That will not happen with a guy who's in complete control like Jim Harbaugh is, and Jim Harbaugh is hiring McDaniel. Nobody else in that organization is.
That's a great point. I just think that's going to be a fascinating. I can't wait till we hear some stories coming out of L.A. because I called them the San Diego Chargers because they always will be in my mind, as they rightfully should be.
Superchargers,
much like the Kingdom of Hawaii.
Yeah,
it's rightfully a monarchy and will be one day again. Yeah. Jesus Christ, come on, people!
I found supporting the game, by the way, where Heathcliff Slocum gave up the home run to Barry Bonds in San Diego.
Heathcliff Slocum sounds like the most made up name I've ever heard in my entire life.
It was May 10th of 2000. So
you know why I have a problem with it? It's because he's in the wrong era. Heathcliff Slocum sounds like a guy who got taken yard by Babe Ruth.
He should be on a newsreel, right?
Yeah. Heathcliff Slocum here. He's going to throw a nice 86 mile per hour, and Babe Ruth takes that 480.
Yep. So it was bottom of the eighth. And Tony takes Bennis out, Slocum to face Barry Bonds to lead off the bottom of the eighth, and Bonds, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he splashed one, and then they won the game 4-3. The Giants did. So it was the next day, I think the 11th, where I probably got yelled at by Tony. Just saying. Hey, we want you to join the Insiders Club. Bernie and I, every Friday, we get together and we talk some ball, some memories like that. You know what we'll do? I will do this for you for this Friday. I will, and by the way, Tony, I know wanted Bernie to call him in the last couple of days. I will have Bernie give you his best Tony La Russa set two, brouhaha, kerfuffle. I will have Bernie give that to you on this week's edition of Bernie and Randy, and it's available if you become an STL Sports Central insider. All you need to do is go to stlsportscentral.com and you can sign up, support local media, and go watch a game with Jammer and all that cool stuff. STL Sports Central Insiders Club.
I would love to maybe not this week because it's on short notice, but maybe next week. I kind of want to get you and Bernie or one of you two on with somebody from Atlanta and have you guys debate Edmonds, Andrew Jones. I think it would be a fascinating back and forth.
Andrew Jones has a 70 career WAR, 62.4, I believe, or was Beltran 70? Beltran was 70.
No, 62.7 for Jones.
62.7 for Jones. Beltran was 70, and Edmonds is like 60.4.
60.4 exactly.
So why did Jim Edmonds fall off the ballot with less than 5%? It's not an Atlanta thing; it's a writers thing.
Well, it's not necessarily just that. It's because when I got to Mizzou in 2009, there were 5 different Braves fans throughout my 4 years there, who, when they found out I was from St. Louis, accosted me, and were like, "Why does everyone? Why do you guys think Jim Edmonds is better than Andrew Jones?" And I remember just standing there and being like, "I don't really have an opinion on this. I root for Jim Edmonds. I don't know that much about Andrew Jones." But they were adamant about it, and it's a comparison I've always seen thrown around. And I know that Atlanta people feel very strongly that Edmonds overshined Jones unfairly in the NL across the early aughts.
Well, that's because he
across
was
the
always
odds.
in the playoffs and always doing great things
Yes.
in the playoffs. Jones had the World Series, the playoff and World Series against the Yankees in '96. But Andrew hit like 434 homers, right?
Andrew Jones hit, 434 home runs.
And Edmonds hit
396,
396, I believe. 393?
Yep.
So if Jimmy would have hit 7 more home runs, it's weird, but if he would have hit 7 more home runs, the conversation would be dramatically different.
The one thing that does fascinate me, and listen, if you don't buy into these numbers, that's fine, but looking at them on Fangraphs is crazy, because maybe it's just Fangraphs model isn't built to like properly read Jim Edmonds playing shallow. But like Jim Edmonds like best range factor on the Fangraphs is like 8, whereas Andrew Jones has like 9 straight years of like 15 on his range factor. So it's like it's crazy, because I think a lot of people who are also in Atlanta are annoyed by Jim Edmonds winning so many Gold Gloves in center field over Andrew Jones. Really, when you look at defensive runs saved, when you look at range factor and all these things, according to Fangraphs and those numbers, Jones blows him out of the water, which is wild to me, because despite being a much bigger home run hitter, OPS plus completely in Jim Edmonds' favor by 20 points. Jim Edmonds is a 135 OPS plus player, while Andrew Jones is only 115. They think he's a 20% better hitter, and I would argue Andrew Jones is not a 20% better fielder than Jim Edmonds.
And I believe Andrew Jones is a Hall of Famer, but yes, I think Jim Edmonds is too. And that's the issue that I have, is I don't think people did their homework on Edmonds, and hopefully one of these eras committees will take a closer look at what Jim Edmonds was. And by the way, as we said, Edmonds was electrifying during the postseason. So I think there's a lot to look at, a lot of meat on that Hall of Fame bone for Jim Edmonds, if you'd like to check it out.
But go watch Bernie today, become an insider, or you can actually watch the video. The insider is how you get all the columns. You can watch Bernie's video right here on STL Sports Central's YouTube. He breaks down the Andrew Jones case in kind of in retrospect. If Andrew Jones got in, why did Jim Edmonds, why did the voting happen to him the way it did?
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, party time on Thursday. STL Sports Central bringing you a party and a really great show too, a live broadcast with Cam Jensen, Jimmy the Cat Hayes, and special guest Matt Adams. It's at The Key STL Burger Bar and Boogie Thursday night, right there on Olive and Grand Center. And we'll have opening day cards, tickets to give away, blues tickets, autographed merch, and more from Cam and Matt. So check it out. That is Thursday night, January 22nd, 6 to 8 p.m. at The Key in Midtown St. Louis.
Yeah, literally across the street from that big parking garage next to the Chaffetz Arena and the Mizzou and the SLU baseball fields. Then there's that parking garage right across the street on that block. Before that, you kind of get that weird little split off street that goes up to the Fox. That's where The Key is. It's right across the street from that parking garage. Really easy to get to.
All right. So we hope to see you there. And we hope to see you here again on Thursday, right here on the Randy Carricker Show with Matthew Rocchio here on STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. Thanks to Wilson for getting us on the air, and we will see you next time here at STL Sports Central. So long, everyone.